Summer 2026. The lights go out in the Kremlin. The world's largest nuclear weapons state, with 6,000 nuclear warheads, collapses, not from war, but from lack of money. $165 million per day. Even at this very moment, Russia is raiding its treasury to finance the war, but that treasury has already begun to run dry. GDP growth rate of 4.1%? Is this really the truth? It's an optical illusion, calling the explosion of a $100 million missile in 10 minutes growth. 1917 Tsarist Empire, 1991 Soviet Union. History is now preparing for the third collapse. February 7, 2025, 10 a.m. A bureaucrat announces at the microphone in the briefing room of Moscow's National Statistics Office. Russia's GDP in 2024 recorded 4.1% growth. GDP grows while the whole world pours sanctions on them? That's right, but we must not believe these numbers at face value. May 2024. At a military factory in the Ural Mountains, a state-of-the-art missile worth $100 million was completed. On the books, GDP rises by that amount. Spectacular growth, right? But a few days later, that missile explodes over Kharkiv, Ukraine. Just 10 minutes, the time it took for $100 million to evaporate with the flames. Precious capital that should have been used to build roads and invest in future industries disappeared into smoke in just 10 minutes. January 2025, the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute released a shocking report. Russia's total military spending is at 7.2% of GDP. CNN reported more specific figures. In 2025, Russia poured 32.5% of its federal budget into defense, a total of 13.5 trillion rubles, approximately $126 billion. Russia's current economic growth is based not on production, but on depletion. Morning of January 16, 2026. An emergency meeting is convened in the basement vault of the Kremlin's Ministry of Finance, because the National Welfare Fund has reached its limit. Putin's emergency fund, which had been sustaining this precarious fake boom, has now begun to run dry. What on earth is happening in that vault that everyone believed would never dry up? How has Russia managed to survive for nearly 4 years despite global economic sanctions? The answer is simple: oil. But a huge hole has been punctured in that solid fortress. According to the Moscow Times, from January 16th to February 5th, 2026, Russia sold 12.8 billion rubles, approximately $165 million worth of Chinese yuan and gold. $165 million per day. This is the highest daily sales volume ever, higher than the 11.4 billion rubles during the COVID crisis, more than double the previous month's rate. Russia's economy is at the point of selling household furniture and gold rings as monthly income decreases while expenses explode. When a country's emergency fund runs out, the next step is obvious: either rob the citizens' pockets or mortgage the entire future of the nation. But even as the treasury empties, Putin is actually intensifying the war. Why is Russia, an oil-producing country, suffering from such a money drought in an era that's not even low oil prices? The answer is quite simple. Russia is now continuing the worst reverse margin business, spending $120 to earn $100. According to the Moscow Times, revenue from oil and natural gas sales in 2024 was 8.4 trillion rubles, approximately $108.4 billion. This is the lowest level since 2020. India and China, once Russia's biggest oil money customers, are no longer the allies they used to be. They're only buying Russian crude oil that has nowhere to go due to sanctions at discounted prices. After deducting the operating costs of the shadow fleet using unidentified old ships to avoid global maritime sanctions and sky-high marine insurance premiums, the net profit Putin receives is at a dismal level. The last card Putin has now drawn is to extort the precious pocket money of his citizens. Russia's tax revenue in 2025 is expected to be 29.4 trillion rubles, an 18.4% increase from the previous year. Of this, only about 1/3 came from economic growth. The remaining 2/3? Tax from tax rate increases. January 1, 2026, Russia plans to raise the value-added tax to 22%. The Kremlin is passing on the costs of their war gamble entirely to the citizens. 22% value-added tax increase, corporate tax explosion. All of this is to maintain Putin's imperial delusion. The government should protect its citizens, but the Russian regime is exploiting them. The Russian central bank announced it would maintain interest rates at 21% in 2026. In the summer of 2026, due to the consequences of the murderous 21% interest rate and the depleted National Welfare Fund, the Russian economy will face its final judgment. The IMF made a cold forecast. 2025 Russia GDP growth 0.5 to 1.5%, a sharp slowdown from 4.1% in 2024. After 2026, it will get even worse. Even pro-government analysts inside Russia have written secret reports. Starting from July 2026, an unavoidable recession will begin. Russia no longer has the funds to sustain this hellish war of attrition. 1917 Bolshevik Revolution, 1991 collapse of the Soviet Union, and 2026, history is repeating itself again. The Putin regime has been deceiving its people by hiding signs of economic crisis. Official statistics have been manipulated, and economists who speak the truth have been silenced. The arrogance and incompetence of the dictatorial regime have mortgaged the future of 140 million Russian citizens. History ultimately repeats. Empires collapse when their books go bankrupt before they die by the sword. Numbers don't lie. What we're witnessing now is a déjà vu of the Soviet Union's demise.